everybody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
Today we're talking about bad art advice you're going to hear as a new graffiti artist, and you might even hear it as an experienced one. And we're also going to talk about how this can negatively impact you for years to come. So the very first one on the chopping block is draw every single day. And on the surface this might seem like really great advice, because I mean, as an artist, if you want to get better, you do have to put in the legwork. You have to go ahead and draw. But blindly drawing the same thing over and over again isn't really going to get you where you want to go. And oftentimes, especially for amateurs, that's exactly what they do. Now, graffiti tends to be a lot more susceptible to this than any other art form, because other art forms have their fundamentals very established, and it's easy to find that kind of information. For graffiti, that's a little bit different of a story here. I know a lot of you guys can relate to this, but when I first started, I would literally just do the same tag 100 times without doing anything different. I would do the same straight letter God knows how many times without doing anything different. So with that, you just spend the next decade drawing all the time, drawing every day, and you really don't have much to show for it. Instead, you're just at the average skill level of every other graffiti artist around you. So the issue with this advice is the fact that all this drawing that we're doing, drawing every day, is unguided. We don't have a clear goal and a clear time to achieve it. And as a result, we're kind of just shooting in the dark without any real objective. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to study and then practice the things that you're studying. Progress happens in two parts. You have to not only learn new things, new credible information, but then you have to exercise that information that you just took in. So for graffiti, that's going to be all of the elements of art: line, shape, form, value, space, color, texture. Then you have to do the art form specific fundamentals, which we have a full playlist on right up here. And we also have a book that we just released about it, which is the only book in the market that covers this information. If you guys want to pick the book up, we got a link to it in the description down below. We have physical copies on Amazon, and the ebook version is over on our online store. All of that in the description down below. But you're going to want to study that as well. From there, you're going to want to study techniques. After you study this credible, good information, you're going to practice and exercise that information. And that's going to give you more guidance as you draw every day. And with that guidance, you'll make the progress you're looking for. Next, extremely crappy advice, where if I was holding a tier list of worst advice possible, this would be at the very top. And that is graffiti has no rules. And that just couldn't be further from the truth. We're not going to spend much time on this one because of how ridiculous it is, but if you disagree with me, go ahead and draw something without using line, shape, form, value, space, color, texture. And go ahead and spell a name without using any letters. I will wait. Not very long though, because otherwise I'd be here forever. The fact of the matter is, every single art form, even abstract arts, as well as graffiti, all have fundamentals. There's no two ways around that. If it didn't have fundamentals, we would not physically be able to draw it. Now, don't get me wrong, if you don't care about progress, if you only draw for fun, then you don't have to practice or study the fundamentals. You can just have fun doing you. Nobody's stopping anybody from doing that. But not knowing the fundamentals or knowingly ignoring the fundamentals does not mean the fundamentals don't exist. So moving on from that one, we've got the next one, which is actually really understandable advice, and that is to copy other people's styles and then take little bits and pieces in order to build your own. Kind of Frankensteining your own style, if you will. But the issue with this is, once again, this is very similar to the very first advice. It's not guided by anything. You see, the definition behind style is that style is the exaggeration of the fundamentals while maintaining the integrity of the fundamentals, keeping the fundamental correct, if you will. So how is an amateur, somebody who doesn't know the fundamentals, meant to exaggerate the thing that they do not know? They can't. On top of that, even if they did exaggerate the fundamentals by copying somebody, there's no way they would be able to consistently maintain the fundamentals integrity because they don't know the fundamentals. So the only way you get that consistency down pat is if you learn the basics, and if you learn the basics, you don't have to copy. Now, that isn't to say that you can't look to other people's work for inspiration, and that isn't to say that you can't look to other people's work to learn. You certainly can. But there's a difference between looking and studying to understand versus looking to slice a piece off, plop it onto yours, which is what just about every graffiti artist does. And what happens after they've done all this is they still haven't learned the fundamentals. They just gained an intuition for what looks good and what doesn't, which leaves them in a rut. It leaves them stuck with that specific style. It leaves them unable to evolve it, and it leaves them unable to create something new. And worse yet, it gives them this false impression that they've learned the fundamentals already, so they don't feel the need to go back to learn what they haven't actually learned yet. So if you want to avoid that whole mess, and if you want to cultivate a style that is actually true to yourself, then you have to learn the fundamentals, and then from there you can exaggerate those fundamentals however you see fit. And that'll be your actual style, not some copied amalgamation that you Frankenstein together after decades of looking at other people's work and kind of blending them all together. It's very similar to other art forms, where if you want to learn how to draw cartoons better, well then you gotta learn human anatomy. And that knowledge of human anatomy will allow you to exaggerate your cartoons the way you want to. So for graffiti, you would learn the anatomy of letters and graffiti's other fundamentals, which would allow you to go ahead and exaggerate those fundamentals how you see fit. Now, the last piece of advice that I hear a lot of people give, and it's not entirely bad advice either, is to stay in your books and don't paint walls, don't use spray paint until you get good in your books. But the issue with this advice is the fact that regardless of whether you're painting a wall or you're working in the books, the first two pillars of art, the elements of art, line, shape, form, value, space, color, texture, as well as the second pillar of art, the art form specific fundamentals, letter structure, negative space management, letter name weight, letter name positioning, and flow, all of those still stay the same in the books to the walls. So the only thing that changes is technique, the third pillar of art. And technique happens to have the least impact on somebody's skill and knowledge for the overall art form. Meaning that practicing on a wall when you're a toy isn't going to make you any more toy. All it's going to do is it's going to get you more familiar with a spray can. That way when you do get good, you'll be able to express that skill and knowledge on a wall easier because you already have the practice with spray paint and its techniques. However, if you just spend all your time in the books in order to impress people when you go to a wall finally, you're going to be really shocked to find out that your work is still crap. And the reason this will happen is because, yeah, sure, you now understand graffiti and the elements of art. You've learned the first and second pillar, but you haven't built up your skills with spray paint. Cant Control is unfamiliar to you, so you can't fluidly express that skill and knowledge that you've developed in your books. So all of that knowledge and skill in your books isn't translating to the wall. Now, that doesn't make you a bad artist, it just means that you're not familiar with spray paint at that point. And that's perfectly well and good. But it also means that now you've waited to paint walls for no reason at all. And waiting to paint on walls has brought you no benefits. And people might say, oh, well, it's more about getting up. It's more about, like, you know, putting out your best foot forward when you hit the streets. The downside to that is, once again, the same exact issue. If you wait to get up on walls after you become good, and number one, you're going to be waiting a very long time. But number two, you're still going to be messing up your tags, your throwies, and your pieces on the walls because you haven't built up a can control. So as a result of that, it's better just to build up your can control and your techniques in general with all of your other fundamentals. But guys, that pretty much wraps up today's video. If you have more bad advice you'd like to go ahead and share in the comments down below, by all means, feel free to do it. I'd love to go ahead and hear it. Also, before we head out, I want to let you guys know, a good friend of the channel, UFO, he's a really chill dude, very, very kind. He's currently going through some stuff with his YouTube channel right now. If you want to check it out, I've linked his video in the description down below. I know a lot of you guys are fans of his, and I'm sure he'd really appreciate a helping hand. Well, I'll actually have it over here as well. Now, right under this video, you'll also find the best how to do graffiti tutorials as well. So if you're looking to learn graffiti, that's the place to do it, as well as the book we have. But dudes, I'll catch you guys in next week's video. Thank you for watching.